haven't played as Ludwig yet, have I? Yeah. No, let's go with this one. No. There we go. Oh, we're live. Hi. Yes. Yes, we're live. Yes. Hi. I definitely was not playing Mario Kart Switch. Good game. You should try it sometime. So, before we actually dig into it, as usual, I like to hit a couple of just random notes. First of all, we do have a voot going. I'm going to explain this right at the beginning, because this is probably going to be up for at least a little bit. We're deciding... I was kind of arbitrarily deciding something for Multiplayer Sunday, but then I realized that as much as that's fine for certain aspects of my show, for something that's deliberately involving the viewers in interaction, I should probably get some weigh in. So here's the deal, guys. What the voot is, which Deutsch just linked over there, is we can have a large number of games we play through for Multiplayer Sunday. However, you know, that means... So the way the system works regardless is we play a game, it is then removed from the queue until we've played every game in the queue. So every game will be played before we replay a game, barring special circumstances. You with me so far? So if we have a large queue of games, that means it might be months before we replay a particular game. But we will have more of a variety of games to play. If we have a smaller list of games, which is technically what we have right now, then we will have a higher chance of replaying certain games, but smaller list of variety. That is the choice behind this voot right here. Now, next thing I wanted to comment on, just really quick. So, I saw the most clickbaity thing ever recently. I shouldn't say most clickbaity, but it was one of the most blatantly clickbait things I've seen recently, which just made me laugh. It was a news article that was something along the lines of, "Good news for fans of Final Fantasy VII." And I'm like, oh, sweet, I'm a fan of Final Fantasy VII. I like good news. Let's see what we got. So I go and I look at it, and the news article is about how Steve Burton... What are you talking about, Zoan? Zoan's on crack, guys. So Steve Burton is going to be... Oh, shut up, Roxamus. Steve Burton is going to be doing voice acting for Final Fantasy VII, the remake. For those of you who don't understand why that's incredibly clickbaity, that's basically like saying, "You won't believe how wet water is." It's summer, Zoan. All streams start 1 hour earlier in the summer, because I have more time. So more time for streaming. I even did an announcement about this. Anyways, so yeah, okay, for those of you not fully aware of the circumstances, Steve Burton has always played Cloud. If I'm not mistaken, he has never not been the English voice actor for Cloud, going all the way back to when he was first voice acted, all the way back in Kingdom Hearts 1. He did it in Advent Children, he did it in Dissidia, he's done it in everything. Everything that's ever been Cloud has been Steve Burton. But it's okay, guys, because he's doing the voice of Cloud, and super clickbaity. The other thing I want to talk about, yeah, exactly, Leander. Good news for fans of Final Fantasy VII. The Buster Sword is in the game. Also, we're going to call it Mako, because we don't know how to do pronunciations. I'm sorry, it's Mako. I don't care. It's Mako. Here, let's get the music going again. Oh my god. Make sure you voot. Okay, so next thing I want to cover before we get into real news here. Is that too loud? How's the volume of the audio? I've actually changed a couple things with the audio. Good news! Final Fantasy VII will be called a Final Fantasy game. I mean, this is kind of a quiet song, so if this is the normal volume, I should probably turn it down, actually. Because this is a pretty quiet song. Anyways, for those of you who are fans of Alan Wake... Oh, sorry. For those of you here at the Lorewalkers who are fans of Alan Wake, screw you. Screw you in the face. Because music license labels have decided to make the world a worse place yet again. I went into... I tried to figure out the specific licensing label that owns the rights to the music in Alan Wake. It turns out it's actually several. I'll turn it down about to there. Several. In other words, there's actually quite a few different music license labels who are causing the problems with Alan Wake. For those of you not aware of what I'm talking about, Alan Wake is being pulled from digital distribution, and probably from distribution in general, so in other words, no more copies being sold, because they would have to renew the franchising fee, or not franchising, that's the wrong term, I guess just the licensing fee, for the music that's played in the game, which includes at least one song from David Bowie and a couple other songs, all of which are owned by license labels. Now, as I've said before, license labels are the devil. Not literally, of course, that would be ridiculous, but they're probably one of the closest things to just raw evil in this world. And I'm saying this with absolutely no sarcasm and no hyperbole. I am actually daily astonished by how goddamn evil music license labels are. So this is actually pretty minor compared to the stuff they usually pull off. But this is just another aspect in which they are making the world a worse place. Because from what is, by all accounts, a fairly decent game that I admittedly have not played because I'm not a big Stephen King fan, is being pulled because license labels. Now, what Progue points out is actually an interesting point, because it's funny how many different games rely on licensed songs. The Saints Row series comes to mind. The entire Grand Theft Auto series comes to mind. The recent Telltale stuff might actually run into these issues in a few years, when their licensing contracts with the labels that own the rights to their music runs out. I got nothing, guys. I got nothing. I mean, once again, some people have accused me of being... Oh yeah, by the way, I'm sorry, really quick. Alan Wake is super on sale right now. So if you want to pick it up, go do it. It's like $3. Some people accuse me of being anti-money, which is actually extremely not true. Money, that is to say, trade, is something I'm hugely in favor of. It is a massive impact on our culture, and it is something that, in my opinion, is actually mandatory for society to exist past the tribal level. My opinion. What I am against is greed. I want to make that clear. I had a thought recently when this news came to mind. I was actually talking with Pax on Battle.net when this actually happened, when the news dropped, and I'm like, hey, Pax, blah, 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 and he's like, he just starts laughing, and I'm like, what? And so he's been reading the Expanse series of books recently. I'm not going to get into spoiler details, don't worry, no spoilers here. But basically he was talking about the idea that, you know, if in real life we had the tech and the resources to go settle the moon, or settle on Mars or whatever, we wouldn't do it. You know why? Because it wouldn't be profitable. Because the people who would be funding it would look at it and say, well, why would we do that? And so it would never happen. Anyways. I had one other non-news item. I'm trying to think of what it was. It was something just now. Oh yeah, happy Mother's Day to those mothers in the audience, which is probably none of you. Not that that's a bad thing. I hope you have at least told your mothers happy Mother's Day. I haven't told mine yet because, well, I've told one of mine, of my three. Two of them are not awake yet. Mother's Day, woo! I knew it, Progue! That's why you're Prognant, right? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, what I do actually have one other new thing. For those of you who care, I actually have found a flaw in my Witcher 3 backgrounds that I'm using for Ruminations, which really upsets me because I was really happy with the Witcher 3 backgrounds, other than, you know, the fact that they're awesome. A little save icon will pop up roughly once every 15 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I need to look this up. I need to look this up. So it turns out, yes, by the way, we'll be playing Stellaris today. We might be playing some Heroes of the Storm if we have 4 other people who need it. So speak up if you need Heroes of the Storm for the weekly quest. If we do Heroes of the Storm, we're not playing for real. We're playing to get games done, and we're getting it done as quickly as possible, okay? No fun allowed! Seriously, though, we're going to just try to blaze through matches as quickly as possible, if we do that. There's a little save icon that pops up over here every 15 minutes. Now, I spent about 20 or so minutes trying to dig into, maybe there was a mod or an ini file or some kind of console command I could do to disable autosaves. You can't. I'm just going to tell you. There's nothing. You can't disable autosaves in Witcher 3. I can't tell you how much that pisses me off. Can't disable autosaves in Witcher 3. Now, that's funny, because Witcher 1 you can disable autosaves in, but not Witcher 3. So the extremely crappy solution I came up with for this is basically just to crop the image. So the Witcher 3 backgrounds are going to be a little less, high quality because we're only going to be seeing part of the screen henceforth. It didn't do anything, Lurker. It was still doing it every 15 minutes, like it auto-capped or something. Maybe there's some other option related to that I need to change. I don't know. Maybe one of my mods is interacting with it in a weird way. I don't know. So for right now, we've got the cropped option, and that's our solution for the time being. Anyways, so let's get on to real news. I actually have a few things to talk about this week. I just want to bring this one up. Actually, I'm not going to put this in the news section, even though we're 12 minutes in now. Probably not Arenaru. I will probably never play the Witcher 3s again because I will never have time. I'm actually behind schedule right now because I've been working on the Paper Mario stuff. In fact, I'm going to have to actually go back on my word and stop working on the Paper Mario stuff this week to get main rumination stuff done so that I could then go back and work on the Paper Mario stuff. Anyways, of course, I'm kind of waiting on people anyways, so that's not really a huge loss of time. I just want to mention this. One thing I've heard a lot is that fake accents piss people off. I hear that comment constantly. Oh, that's not what a real Russian accent sounds like. That's not what a real British accent sounds like. That's not what a real German accent sounds like. Am I the only person who isn't bothered by that? I mean, in a situation where it's supposed to be a genuine accent, yeah, that would bother me. But in the majority of games where they just use it as an accent for a certain person, like, for example, Draenei. The Draenei use this sort of vague Eastern European accent, and it's not really a real accent. But it doesn't bother me, because it's a Draenei accent. Or how about a Dwarven accent? Let's start with that one. Or how about a Troll accent? Now, that's the first thing I wanted to mention, because I know I'm using Warcraft as a thing, but I've seen this constantly. It really does not bother me in the tiniest, slightest bit, but what I want to actually add, is that the idea of, let's use British as an example. I only know about 30 British people in my life. All 30 of those people don't really have the same accent. None of them speak the same. Because there's like a bajillion different British accents. It's like saying American accent. Hang on, if I really elongate my mouth just a little bit, I can speak in what is usually considered to be a typical American accent. Although that's actually not my normal default manner of speaking. But, again, how many accents are there in the United States of America? How many accents are there in Mexico? How many accents are there in Spain? How many accents are there in Italy? How many different Russian accents are there? And so forth and so on. So the idea to me, and why it doesn't bother me, is the very concept that apparently an accent, if it's going to be a blank accent, is it has to be this one exact, very specific variety of that accent, or otherwise it's just wrong. Now, let's make this clear. If someone's putting on a bad accent, regardless of what it's supposed to be, yeah, okay. That's fine. You can be upset about that. I'm upset about that too if you put on a bad accent. If you ever hear me try to do a British accent of any variety, you have heard a bad accent. But I've heard quite a few people give fake accents, well delivered, and the people are like, oh, that's not insert country here. Or, oh, that's not insert culture here. I don't get it. Moving on. No, I can't do British, guys. My British turns into Romanian. I'm not even kidding. My sister makes fun of me because every time I try to do British, it just devolves into Eastern European. Anyways. So, really quick, there's one other thing I want to talk about before we get to the news sections for realsies. Still haven't put any timestamps on the screen. I'm kind of delaying on... Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of delaying on talking about what we're going to be doing with Stellaris today, because I'm kind of hopeful they'll push out the 1.6.1 patch before we start playing, because they mentioned that they were going to sit on it for a few days as of a couple days ago, so maybe? If they don't, we'll probably go ahead and update to the beta, and I'll just tell everyone, make sure to opt in for the beta thing in order to get in. By all accounts, the... excuse me, the existing save state will work just fine. Yes, that's great. Now, next thing I want to talk about is Overwatch, because I love talking about Blizzard stuff. Here, let me actually get my first real save time thing here. Where are we? 116. Let's talk about Overwatch. So, ESPN has an article stating that Blizzard is struggling to sign franchises for Overwatch League due to unfavorable terms. Blizzard has released a counter-statement saying that things are actually going quite well, and people are trying to spread misinformation to increase their bargaining power. Now, we actually have no concrete information on this. There's a lot of rumors. The information that people are spreading right now is that it will be a $20 million franchise fee to buy into Overwatch League. Now, that is a lot higher than most other franchises. League of Legends is like 1.3 million or something way lower than that. So obviously, if that were true, that would be kind of head-scratching. It may be true. I don't know if it's true. I'm not even going to comment on the truth of it or not, because who frickin' knows? They're also stating, where there's one other thing that's being... here it is. No revenue sharing... no guaranteed revenue sharing until 2021. And that's only if you meet certain conditions. And if the team sells its spot to another party, League would receive 25% of the proceeds from the sell. Now, it's the same reason you would do a franchise fee for football, Dakota. A smaller scale, but same exact concept. One of the biggest sources of revenue for being able to have your club play in a stadium is not just the ticket sales, but like the sales of shirts and merchandising, all of the money, the millions of dollars that gets dumped into a single match of football, European football, gets cycled back into the people who own the clubs. At least some of it does. And so that's one of the benefits of having paid into a franchise fee and being part of a league, okay? This is very surface level. I'm just trying to cover the basic economics of why you would want to buy into a league. Now, so this is on the professional level, is what Blizzard is trying to do. We do know for fact that Blizzard is trying to do a professional level of Overwatch as a league. League of Legends, ironically, already has a professional level of league, and there's a few other games that do as well. Overwatch, they're still building it. They're still working on it as of now. All of this is interesting in its own right. Again, I don't actually know who's involved, per se, or who's saying the truth, or whatever. I actually checked that just this morning, and indeed just checked just now to see if there was any update on the news, but there's not. So, who friggin' knows? That's not the big point I want to cover. Because, again, I don't want to comment on rumors and misinformation. What I really want to comment on is something that several people were spreading as part of their anti-Blizzard campaign, for lack of a better term on this, and that's the fact that Overwatch is not a good spectator sport. Now, before I say anything else whatsoever, agree or disagree, Overwatch is not a good spectator sport. Go. And now I wait for 30 seconds. Yeah, anti-Blizzard, it's called Summer. Sorry. Interesting spread of opinions here. I'm actually not into esports myself. The anti-Blizzard defamation league. Oh God, my ear! My ear! No! Anyways. Now, I mention this because it's one of those weird bits of information to me. Now, the reasoning behind it was that following behind someone's camera was not fun. That was the main thrust of what everyone was saying. Oh my God, watching an FPS game is not fun. Now, first of all, that's going to be down to opinion, as I think the chat just showed. You know, whether watching an FPS from first-person perspective is fun is going to depend on opinion. I mean, I have plenty of viewers when I stream Overwatch, and I'm a tiny little speck on the internet. But with regards to spectator play, I've shoutcasted Overwatch matches, and those were actually really popular. Like, that went off really well. And I could just, and you can zoom around, and you have full three-dimensional viewing, and you could actually lock in on someone to have like a third-person thing, or you could zoom into their view. You've actually got quite a few options just built into the game for spectating. So, I'm not sure that I personally agree, based solely on the fact that they've built in several options to add to spectating. In fact, just right off the top of my head, and I could do this, being a worthless tiny little streamer on the internet, so I'm pretty sure some official people could do this. How hard would it be to have the main screen be the spectator guy, the guy on camera, basically, whose job it is to fly around watching the match, while you've got, say, like one little camera over here, which is actually watching the first person of whoever it is you're interested in at the moment. You know, watching the view of Joe Bob over there, you know. We do this in racing all the time. just to say here. Objection! So, yeah, I personally, I don't actually booed tolls. Oh, good tools. But yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree. Now, whether or not an FPS in general is boring to watch, again, that's opinion. But I wanted to comment on this because I found it unusual, the idea that certain types of games, because this was one of the things that was being pushed, the very concept that certain types of games should never be streamed, basically. And the idea that was being presented was that FPSs should never be streamed, because FPSs are boring to watch. Now, I'm not going to present as evidence the massive Counter-Strike streams or, you know, anything of that sort to kind of disagree with that statement. I just find that very concept to be a little bit ridiculous in its narrow-mindedness. Anytime you lay down those kind of walls of just, "Bagong, this is unacceptable." What? It's like saying you should never stream a Telltale game. I've heard that before, by the way. I have heard people tell me, not to my face, but in comments and in messages, you should stop streaming Telltale games. Telltale games are not fun to watch. You should not stream them. Telltale games should not be streamed. Now, whether you agree with that statement or not, I'm just going to present a fact that my second most popular streams ever are my Telltale streams. I mean, I've got analytics to back that up if I have to actually pull it up. By the way, my first most popular streams are my lore runs. Or, premiere runs. I actually kind of lump those together because they're kind of the same thing, really. I suppose if I had to divvy them up, I would have to go back and look at which one's more popular. But either way, so let's say it's the third most popular then. We got lore runs, premiere runs, and then Telltale streams. I've had more than one person tell me that, too. So yeah, this kind of blanket statement stuff is just... Apparently, Mandarn. Apparently. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. I just wanted... What genre do I enjoy streaming the most? That's a good question, actually. I would say it's basically a tie between strategy and RPG. Granted, both of those are very broad terms, but I'm doing that on purpose. Let's talk about our next thing. What else we got here? Right. I actually have a series of things to talk about that are kind of in a row here. Where's my timestamp? Stellaris is super boring. 25. So Nintendo's been talking about how they're going to have a big shindig at E3, talking about Mario Odyssey, which is the new Switch Mario game. Now, actually, before I go into that, I do want to say one other thing really quick. So I picked up Mario Kart 8. Actually, let's do this in order. I've already taken a time note. Let's talk about, like what, not Simon? Let's talk about Nintendo at E3. So, first of all, how many of you remember when Nintendo made a statement that they weren't going to be presenting stuff at E3? Do you remember that? Anyone? I do, obviously, because I'm bringing it up. I bring this up because I agreed with that. It was my opinion then, and that opinion has not changed, that Nintendo does not need E3. It is also my opinion that E3 is a pile of crap. I mean, no offense to Roximus, who's actually going. I'm actually really happy for him. But, yeah, they actually have a conference planned. They actually have a conference planned, and it's going to be talking about Mario Odyssey. We already know this. They're going to be talking about some Switch stuff, some 3DS stuff, but it's going to be all about Mario Odyssey. That's going to be their thing. Not my thing. Not Simon. So, I don't want to get too much into why I dislike E3. I mean, I still cover E3, because there are still occasionally announcements, and it's, let's be honest, it's kind of fun to make fun of some of the stuff at E3, but I have begotten over the years progressively less and less and less interesting. I have been getting less and less interesting, guys. Less and less interested in E3 every year. So, I mean, this year I had to look it up, like, when is that even? Oh, yeah, it's in, like, 4 weeks, by the way, 4 or 5 weeks, something like that. So, shrug, basically. I'm not super interested in E3, but more to the point, let's talk about Nintendo specifically. Nintendo doesn't need E3. Now, to be clear, no one actually needs E3. Anybody could do their own private little thing. But my point is, Nintendo already has. Nintendo already has the things I can't think of the name of, which I'm going to get like 7 people telling me what it's called in chat here in a moment. Go ahead, quick. Tell me what it's called. I know you all want to. They have the Nintendo thing that... Nintendo Direct. I got there before you did. Ha-ha! They have the Nintendo Direct. They already have the Direct. They already have the Treehouse. They already have things that do everything E3 does, except better and more often. Why do they need E3? What's the point of having another random announcement event that they spend a huge and indeed ridiculous amount of money on? I hate to get into this for the 7,000th time, but one of the things that pisses me off most about businesses in modern society is that they spend money in the wrong ways. They spend money in the wrong directions. You know, it's not like there's... Certainly AAA development and development in general has gotten more expensive over the years, but a decent chunk of the money is being wasted on garbage. You know, my go-to example is the frickin' bus ads, which are way more expensive than they're worth. E3 is expensive. E3 is extremely expensive. I'm not even talking about for us. We already spend bajillions of dollars going to and buying stuff at E3 as far as consumers and the people who watch the development and all that. I'm talking about the people who actually present at E3. That is a crap ton of money, and of course devoting time away from actually doing stuff in order to be at the conference, have developers at the conference, have the marketing people at the conference. All of that effort and attention is being driven towards E3 rather than spent anywhere else. Yeah, Destiny is probably the highlight of what not to do when it comes to spending money on a game. I don't think anything will ever top that. I hope nothing will ever top that. Yeah, even a pass to get in, just to walk in, is $1,000. That's like bottom floor there. Anyways, this is of course just my opinion as far as how E3 is a worthless pile of garbage. But that is my opinion. I'm not going to shy away from that. However, so the other thing is that every time... I know, right, Bubba? Every time I see Nintendo do something at E3, I'm just tilting my head a little bit thinking, why are you even bothering? I mean, cool, but you could have done a Nintendo Direct or a Treehouse, and I would have watched that and been just as interesting. Just as interested. God, I keep screwing up my tenses. I would have been just as interested. One of the E3s that I covered that I got the most flack for was one where I was constantly irritated about the fact that they weren't showing actual goddamn gameplay for a huge amount of the conference. And during that conference, I gave praise to Nintendo for actually having people with a console that they had in their hands playing the game right there that we were seeing. But that shouldn't be praiseworthy, to be blunt. I shouldn't have to praise Nintendo, and some of the Sony companies that were there were doing that as well, for having gameplay. I shouldn't do that. That should not be a thing. It's like saying, "Good job, you didn't murder anyone on the way to work today." Slight difference in scale, but you get the idea. Where'd my Switch go? Whatever. I'll have to tickle it free later. So, whatever. I will be covering E3. Ruximus will be covering E3. By the way, Ruximus is actually going to E3. I don't know how he's going to be presenting his stuff live or after the fact. I will probably plug it when we get there to make sure he gets it. While we're on the subject, let me check that. This is another one. This is ridiculous. This is... There's a rumor that they're going to announce a new Metroid at E3. Hang on. just give me a sec. You got to hear this. Merriam-Webster. Rumor. Noun. A talk or opinion widely disseminated with no discernible source. Or a statement or report current without known authority for its truth. Yes, I also heard the Kingdom Hearts 3 one, which I'm going to talk about as well. Rumor! Okay, I wanted to get that out right up front because some people don't understand what the word rumor means. Oh my god. Okay. Now I'm going to pull up the source of this rumor. You're going to love this. See if I can find the exact quote. Where is it? Where is it? Come on, I want the exact quote. I suddenly can't find the quote. I should have just saved this. Lots of people are just spreading the rumor without actually talking about it. Okay, I can't find the freaking quote. I actually can't find the quote. This is actually weird. There was a tweet put out by one of the gentlemen who does music, who works at Retro, okay? He said, paraphrased, because I can't find the exact quote, "We're working on something big at Retro. I can't talk about it." That's it. That's all. From that bit of information, rumors started spilling out like crazy. Every news site that I frequent to try and, keep abreast of things, every single one was like, "They're working on a new Metroid one! They're making on a new Metroid game! They're working on a new Metroid game!" Every single one of them. I don't know, Zoan. I really don't. Now, in fairness, this is Retro, who have basically made 2 game series as ever. The Metroids, the good ones. I'm sorry, there's other good Metroids, but I mean, the Metroid Primes, and the Donkey Kongs, the recent Donkey Kongs. Now, they could be working on something new, they could be working on a new Metroid, or they could be working on a new Donkey Kong. Any one of these 3 things, I'm down with. Retro's an awesome developer, and I will buy whatever they put out at this point. They still have my consumer trust, because they've put out amazing games. And I gotta be blunt, if they put out a new Donkey Kong game on the Switch, sold. But, what? Now, that being said, in the interest of total honesty, there is one other factoid we have from 3 or 4 years ago. I actually have lost track, to be honest with you. It's over 2, so it's 3 or 4 years ago now, where they were talking to Miyamoto and some of the Retro staff, and they said they were working on 2 new Metroid games, one of which turned out to be, and was found out to be, Federation Force, and the other one was going to be a more 2D-focused platformer Metroid. Is this not on random? It's not on random. I wonder I keep having FF4 music. There we go. That was years ago, and we haven't heard anything about that since. Could have been canceled, could have been put into development hell. I mean, who knows at this point? I don't know. All I'm going to say, though, is having played Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, if they make a side-scroller Metroid of that level of quality, freaking sold day one. Which brings me to my next point. This one's going to get controversial. Sorry. I don't want to talk about this. Those of you who know me know that I have a professional ban against Atlas games, with one exemption. I'm still going to do the rumination on Radiant Historia later this year. October, I think, is when that one's coming out. Now, I was asked a question, a direct question. Someone walked up to me. I've actually been asked this 3 times ever since that ban went into effect. And those people walked up to me, relatively, obviously, internet, and said, "Why haven't you banned Nintendo?" The reasoning was that, no trolling here, by the way. I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm not trying to be like, oh, they're stupid. The reasoning that was being given was that, from their opinion, from their perspective, what Nintendo has been doing for years is as bad, if not worse, than what Atlas has done with regards to the whole, threatening copyright bullcrap thing, right? Now, yes, JJ. Well, the threat is really what pushed it over the line. I've talked about it extensively. I've actually done 2 separate lore weeks discussing the Atlas thing, so I don't want to get into that again. The ban is in effect, with the one exception. Moving on. And yeah, Sega did this crap 5 years ago, too. So, people were like, why haven't you banned Nintendo? Now, my automatic response was, well, Nintendo hasn't done anything as bad. Note the words I use, please. Please don't put words into my mouth. I am not a Nintendo fanboy, and I fully and freely acknowledge that Nintendo has been doing some stupid goddamned crap for years. But it is in my opinion that what Nintendo has been doing is not as bad as what Atlas did. Okay? Now that right there is just the blanket statement. Because here's the thing. What Nintendo has been doing, and I haven't seen any evidence to the contrary myself, is Nintendo will basically steal. I'm going to be as blunt as I can about this. What Nintendo is doing is effectively theft. If I spend an hour in front of a camera talking about something and putting something out, by most definitions, both legally and in reality, that is then my content, right? I have put out this content. That is something that I own. However, if I happened to put, I think it's 45 seconds is the minimum. I forget. Let's say a minute. Let's make it even. If I put 1 minute of gameplay footage from a Nintendo game in the background, or a Nintendo logo, or anything like that, Nintendo says, oh, well, we own that. That is now our property. We have the rights to any ad revenue or anything like that from that. That is theft. They can get away with that because they are a large company with a lot of backing. They have a lot of legal might, and no one has been big enough to be able to actually fight against that legally, which is where it needs to happen. Not a lot of people are particularly interested in fighting that either, because most of the people who are big enough aren't affected by it. You with me so far? That is theft. It is wrong. I don't want anyone to think that I am saying anything otherwise. However, in my opinion, trying to steal something from you is not as bad, and therefore not worthy of ban status, as much as, for example, walking over and destroying your shed so you can't make anything else, period. Which is what Atlas was threatening to do. Okay? Atlus threatens to do this. Nintendo actually does this. Scale. Okay? That's the answer to your guys' questions. For all you who have been asking me why I haven't banned Nintendo stuff. I have a second point, though, tied into this one. Because I started thinking of a hypothetical. Because this boils down to philosophy and perspective on life, as weird as that sounds. The question this boils down to is, are morals and principles worth standing up for? I know that sounds weird, but hear me out. What if Blizzard did what Atlus did? What if Blizzard came out and started threatening with taking down sites and issuing copyright actual real strikes? As in, some people don't understand, there's actually 3 levels of copyright strike. The one Atlus was threatening to do was the third, the most severe, which is the one that can actually cause severe damage to a channel or a streamer, okay? I keep stressing that word, by the way, threatening to do. It was the threat that pissed me off more than anything else, okay? We with it so far? If they actually did it, then screw them forever. So what if Blizzard did it? What if Blizzard said, no streaming our stuff, unless you have an official license? What if Blizzard went with the NFL method? That's actually a great parallel. For those of you who don't know, the NFL is the National Football League, that is to say, Gridiron, here in the United States, and they have a complete goddamned monopoly on the NFL. It's actually kind of ridiculous. To give you an idea, just really quick, just to give you one example of how ridiculous this is, let's say that you want to put on a Super Bowl sale in a town where the Super Bowl's happening. You better have permission to do that. Because if you don't, they can and have in the past come after you for that. Because you don't have the right to use the term Super Bowl, even in the concept of Super Bowl sale. The NFL is ridiculous about it. So again, let's assume Blizzard did this, okay? Now, what that would hurt for them, or whether that would affect their PR, and all of that's irrelevant for the point of this discussion. The relevant point is, what would I do? What would you do? Would you be willing to stand on principle and ban Blizzard games? Now, some of you would probably be like, well, yeah, of course, I don't even like Blizzard games. I love Blizzard games. I play Blizzard games every chance I get. I love Diablo 3. I'm looking forward to an expansion or a new game. I love World of Warcraft. I play that as regularly as I can. I love Here's the Storm. I play that as regularly as I can. We might be playing that today. I love playing StarCraft 2. I wish I could play more of that. I even love playing Overwatch, and I don't even like Overwatch that much. I don't play Hearthstone. So again, do I stand on principle and remove these amazing games from my life? Or do I accept the pragmatic perspective and say, and go ahead and keep playing the games even if I'm trying to make a moral sense? In other words, principles or pragmatism. That's really what this boils down to. Nobody actually asked me this question, by the way. I came up with this one on my own because I was actually thinking, you know, I was talking to Roximus about this. And he was like, dude, you suck and you're terrible and you're horrible. Why are you banning Atlus? And because a lot of people disagreed with me on the ban of Atlus. And that's, I totally understand that, actually. I really do. But the thing that it made me think was, it's easy for me to ban Atlus. I don't even play Atlus games. What if it was Blizzard games? What if it was games that I play on a weekly basis? Hi, Darker. Would it be so easy to do? Well, of course it wouldn't be as easy to do, but would I still have the moral fiber or temerity to do it? Now, if it was the exact same situation, legal threats, yes, I think I would actually be able to do that. It would take something that severe to make me ban Blizzard, but if they pulled the exact same crap that Atlus did, yet no. If they then refused to apologize just like Atlus did, that would make it worse. But I have to be 100% honest, that would be a much more difficult question for me, because again, it comes down to principles versus pragmatism. This also came up because someone who shall remain nameless mentioned just yesterday, you know, just because what Atlus did is scummy doesn't mean I'm going to remove from myself awesome games, right? And there's nothing wrong with that perspective, by the way. That's why I call it principles versus pragmatism. Because, let's be honest, the only one actually being affected by that ban is me. I'm not really affecting Blizzard. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with either perspective of this. I just thought I'd bring it up because it's an interesting moral quandary to me. Anyways, moving on. What's my next point? Is that it? That's it. Okay. Last thing to talk about. Let's talk economics, guys. Kind of. I'm lying, of course. Let's talk about EA. Oh, hang on. I just realized. Hang on. Where is it? Tell me I still have it. Oh, don't tell me I got rid of it. No! Ah, looks like I got rid of it. Damn! Oh, no, it's right there! Ha-ha! So anyways, let's talk about EA. Kingdom Hearts, there's rumors about a Kingdom Hearts... Okay, I guess I should talk about Kingdom Hearts 3. I'll talk about Kingdom Hearts 3 in a second. Hang on, let me make a note about that. Because there is actually something worth talking about there. This is... let's discuss what actually happened first. By all accounts. Let's move this back here a little bit. There we go. Evoot!
Zug Zug.
Well, yeah, exactly, Inquisitor. Oh my god! And now there's a footman being defeated by orcs. As it should be. All seriousness, though. What happened is a development team that has only done tangential secondary work for a Mass Effect game in the past was assigned a main Mass Effect title, not given executive or managerial support in terms of time, money, resources, or investment, and was then pushed to reach a deadline, kind of failed to meet that deadline, had to push out a relatively unfinished product which received lackluster reviews overall, and was then used as an excuse to shut down Mass Effect for the time being and shuffle that development team elsewhere and disseminate it, okay? Now that's what happened. My point is, though, this is not... Bioware is not dead. Mass Effect is not dead. Now, Mass Effect may be dead, but what is happening here is EA doing what EA always does. This sounds like... I mean, this is bog standard for EA. Everything I just said, if you remove the term Mass Effect and replace it with like 15 other games, it's the exact same thing. It is the exact same thing that has happened for EA for... I can't do math all of a sudden. Like 20... No. Yeah, like 20-something years now. This is old news. This is how EA operates. They deliberately hold back on a particular development team and allow that development team to put out a substandard product and then say, gotcha! Pull the rug out from under them, chop up the resources, and disseminate them to the rest of their departments. It's the same thing EA has been doing for goddamn forever. For over 2 decades. Seriously, this is not new. This is not news at this point. But I do want to point out 2 things, because these 2 things are actually relevant. First of all, this does not mean they're going to discontinue Mass Effect, because the most likely thing that's going to happen at this point... Let me rewind just a second. The Montreal team has been working on... I think it's the Montreal team. I'm not actually sure. The team that just got chopped up, who worked on Mass Effect Andromeda, they've got chopped up. They're going wherever, right? Okay, usual, standard business. But the team that made, the Mass Effect team, that development team, is overworking on their new IP right now. Which we still know, like, nothing about, by the way. So they're all working on that. What is most likely going to happen is they're going to sit on the Mass Effect franchise until that team is done with that other new IP in, like, 2 years. Then, they will bring that development team over and work on a new Mass Effect game, which probably won't be out for another 4 or 5 years. And may or may not be any good. And may or may not be an MMO, may or may not be mobile. It depends on how gaming has moved forward. That's 2 years plus before we even start thinking about a new Mass Effect game. It is also entirely possible they might start franchising Mass Effect, like they have already done with Star Wars. But who knows? That's the harsh truth, guys. That's what's happening right now. The odds of us getting a real Mass Effect game inside of 4 years are extremely low. They may not put out a Mass Effect game in 2 to 4 years. They may not even try. That is also possible. Probably is one. Now, to be clear, they are still pushing out the DLC for Andromeda. They have stated that they haven't pulled the plug on the DLC plans. So that's good to know, right? However, that being said, everything I've read seems to feel like a disingenuous statement. Because it sounds like what they're actually saying is, we will still push out the DLC we've already talked about, not all the DLC we might have done. Or to explain what I mean a little bit better there, we might not get the equivalent of Trespasser for Andromeda, or Lair the Shadow Broker for Andromeda. We will get the DLC they already talked about, we'll get the DLC that they already started work on, but we may or may not get any actual chunks of real additional content. That's in the air at this point. So we'll see. Yeah, I was there, Tigzar. Didn't you see me? Bald head. I had a nice outfit going on. They wouldn't let me speak for some reason. So I couldn't make any contracts with anyone. It was very sad. Actually, one of my next upcoming ruminations is going to be specifically on Trespasser, Mandarin. Does EA have any franchises left? Technically, they own Star Wars, as far as franchising for games. Anyways, so that's neat. Now, in order to talk about Kingdom Hearts, I need to find an exact quote. Let's see if I can find it. If I can't find it, I'm just not going to talk about it. Well, this is not actually the quote I was looking at, but it is an interesting quote to talk about. We'll see what they do at Dragon Age in the future. Because at this point, What's IOI, JJ? Translation, no. I don't even know what you're talking about. Alright, let me give you the quotes word for word here. Hang on, let me get to a different song. There we go. And I quote. Now, let me make this 100% clear. I still don't know what that is, Rick Proximus. Let me make this 100% clear. We don't actually know if this stuff is actually real or legit. So, remember that definition of rumor I mentioned earlier? Okay. We defined that one. Rumor. Big asterisk. Okay? I want to start with that. Word for word now. Seems like Nomura is still, quote, in his teens, unquote, with not advancing with Kingdom Hearts 3's development due to his perfectionism. I'm not going to comment on that. If everything goes according to plan, there will be a trailer at E3 and the game will be released in 2018, even if it is unfinished. Seems like it has been exhausting for the Osaka team to have been working on a home console Kingdom Hearts game. On the flip note, Nomura seems to be more interested in what comes after Kingdom Hearts 3 than in Kingdom Hearts 3 itself. The Kingdom Hearts 3 development team was obsessed with releasing a trailer last April and launching the game around 2017. And to the surprise of no one, all of this is due to the development hell of Versus. All these details came to me with a delay of 1 to 2 weeks. Keep this in mind as things can change quickly in-house at Square Enix. The E3 presentation is almost confirmed and Nomura should be at the event in one way or another. I've been thinking about it, Dakota. Getting like a rumor. Hey, Rascar. Additional quotes. As many of you know, Kingdom Hearts 2, Birth by Sleep, and Dream Drop Distance ended up having removed content, so it's nothing new for Kingdom Hearts. All that was planned won't be in Kingdom Hearts 3. Very simple. Next point. Square Enix is not rushing Kingdom Hearts 3. That reports are incorrect. I said they may have cut things, but I didn't say they are in a rush. People change my words. If they can't finish something when they hit the deadline, it'll be cut. There's no rush when you delay a game twice. Reports about Kingdom Hearts 3 being in development hell like Versus are also inaccurate. I said that the development of Versus was a hell. And as Nomura said so many times, this affected him and Square Enix. If Nomura was a Osaka team resident and set his goals accurately, the game would be out in December like planned. Nomura, as you should know, is working with a lot of teams in Square Enix at a lot of games and projects. He keeps quoting for a while, but that's pretty much everything that effectively matters. Oh yeah, sorry, Zone. I actually forgot it was there. It's so beautiful, though. Now, I actually tried to ask Roximus' opinion on this before I did this, but I just want to say this. I have noticed an unusual trend at corporate Square Enix to bash Nomura over the last 2 years. Has anybody else noticed that? Now, from everything I've seen, Nomura strikes me a lot like Peter Jackson. That was the comment I held onto my tongue on earlier. For those of you who don't know, Peter Jackson's directorial style is extremely hands-on and very perfectionist. He's the guy who will do 15 to 50 takes of a scene to get the right cut. Whether you agree with that or not, that's a matter of opinion. That's up to you. He is also someone who is very involved in the editing side of things. There are actually quite a few directors out there who basically say, all right, we've done all this, and then walk away. Peter Jackson will sit in and actually be a part of the editing process, still continuing to direct the movie when it comes to the editing side of things, okay? I mention this because it's not necessarily a bad thing to be that kind of perfectionist. Now, again, I don't know as much about Nomura as I do about Peter Jackson, but everything I've seen seems that he's at least in the same category when it comes to a director and a game producer. He wants it to be right. He wants it to come out just so. I've seen so many interviews from Nomura where he has expressed frustration because what he wanted was literally not possible. You know, the Thousand Heartless battle in Kingdom Hearts 2 is an excellent example of him really pushing for something because damn it. So, the reason I bring this up is I have had a very strong feeling, and I don't have a lot of evidence to back this up other than the multiple articles and interviews that have come out over the last couple of years, that there's either some kind of company politics going on, just normal everyday company politics, which I'll talk about in a second, or, for whatever reason, the company is trying to distance itself from Kingdom Hearts, Nomura, or both, and therefore is deliberately affecting a policy of politics against Nomura, basically bashing Nomura in a polite company, you know, corporate kind of a way, using corporate lingo and speak in order to try and push him down. Now, the latter would make sense if there were some issues going on with Disney, which wouldn't surprise me because it's Disney. The former, I said I would talk about that a bit. It is normal company politics to not want to be the guy with the bullseye on your face. It is very rare in a corporate environment that if you have the bullseye on your face, this is an analogy, obviously. If you have, they don't literally walk around with the bullseye on their face. If you have the bullseye on your face, that it's a good thing. Very rarely is that a good thing. Sometimes it is. Very rarely, though. In general, what that means is something goes wrong, people point to you. If there's an issue, like let's say you're working on 5 projects right now. And let's say there's this one project that there was a screw-up at the machine order and something went wrong. Well, congratulations, you have the bullseye on your face, so when you're brought to task, you are brought to task for it. Not the team, not the development cycle, not whoever actually made the mistake, if indeed someone specifically made a mistake, you are, because you have the bullseye on you. And in many ways, I feel Nomura has the bullseye on his face right now. So, this could just be normal company politics, and they're just pointing to him because... There we go. They're just pointing to him because they can point to him. Because he's the guy who's the big, obvious person we can blame for this kind of thing. Yeah, basic scapegoating. Very typical company politics, and I've been seeing it for years. Because at this point, how many big, obvious public figures do we have left at Square Enix? Yuichi Wada finally stepped down. god. Nomura is, in my opinion, this is from an American perspective, of course, from the perspective of the States, Nomura is the second biggest, obvious, people know who he is person still working at Square Enix. That's actually a whole topic in its own right that I don't want to get into too much, but let's just say that it's a very, very common thing. Yeah, Tabata, that's true. Tabata's up there as well. Yeah, we've got a Kojima situation, basically. Nomura isn't quite at Kojima levels, but same concept is happening. So many people looked at the development of the Metal Gear Solid series and said, wow, Kojima puts out amazing games because he's got the bullseye on his face. They don't look at the hundreds of people behind him, they look at him. I'm not even saying this is necessarily wrong, per se, as long as we at least acknowledge it. This is very common. Why do people all point to the President of the United States as the one reason why all of America is wrong? It's because he has a bullseye on his face. Please no political jokes, by the way. This has been true for decades, okay? We could rewind time back to the 60s, and it was still like this. Yeah, me too, Roximus. Yeah, exactly, Raskor. This has been true in everything forever. There's always a fall guy. There's always someone who's got the bullseye on their face. I use that specifically rather than the term scapegoating or sacrificial lamb, because those are only applicable in negative situations. Because how many times have you seen a company succeed? Or a game succeed, or whatever? And it's like, it's all because of that guy, or that girl. That one person is the reason why that succeeded. It's positive and negative. Everything goes to that one person. I'm told it's very stressful. I say I'm told. I'm a one-man department, so I take all the blame and credit no matter what. Although that's not true anymore. Now I've got voice actors working for me, who I can't pay. Which sucks, actually. Maybe if I offer to pay Roximus, he'll get his lines done. Anyways. Oh my god. Yeah, first rule of leadership. Everything is your fault. I think that's all I have to talk about this week. This is actually a long Loreweek. Well, but money can equal time, Roximus. It's the same reason I don't like to rely on Third too much anymore. Because if I could pay Third a full-time job, as far as funding, then it would be a lot easier for us to push out those things, because he wouldn't have to work his day job. If I could afford to pay you, Roximus, X number of money a month, then you wouldn't have to have your day job, and then time would stop being an issue. So it is actually a money issue, at least from the seat I'm sitting in. Anyways. The little one isn't actually my PR department. She's damage control. When I do something horrible, it's like, oh, by the way, here you go. Here she is. No, there is not in Therios. Twitch does not save broadcasts that old, I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm not paying Peeper Preacher. I don't make enough money to live on my own. I don't make enough money to have my own place to stay. I can't afford to pay other people. If I could, I would. Get a team going. Anyways, that's all I got for Loreweek. I'm going to chop this off for our local recorders.